All right, Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson. I want to look at both of their worldviews and talk about some of the problems that I have with Sam's explanation of his worldview and some questions that I have. All right, so I've seen quite a few listened to quite a few of Sam Harris's podcasts. I've seen him in quite a few interviews with people, and he's normally on the attack. He's normally dissecting other people's belief systems and trying to undermine them, which definitely has its place, but often when talking about maybe simple people with traditional religious values and they follow it and they live moral, productive lives, and I don't see any reason to try to undermine or poke holes in their belief system. Especially because Sam, I would rarely have ever see him talk about or be questioned on the basis of his worldview, his first assumptions of his morality, and how a society would be built, if we're going to tear down these other systems of meaning to produce meaning in someone's life and an aim in someone's life, what are we going to replace it with, right? And I just watched an episode of Ben Shapiro having Sam on, and like in the last 15 minutes, Ben actually questioned Sam about, well, where does he get his morality from? And how does he describe what is good? And these were my thoughts on it. And I also am going to talk about Jordan Peterson's worldview, my understanding of it, of both these men's worldviews. And please, maybe I'm not seeing something, I'm confused about something, please let me know. Okay, so Sam's worldview is essentially, as I understand it, as he expressed it, was that there's this big sum total, there's this big group of experiences that we as human beings can have. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. Well, how do you know which ones are good? Okay, so his initial point that if he can get you to accept, then he can build this system from that, right? So his first point is that he's trying to convince us of, imagine that there's every sentient being in reality is having only experiences that we would deem as bad, right? So imagine that there's some group of experiences, love, joy, pleasure, happiness, that we want. There's another big group of experiences, pain, suffering, depression, sadness, that we don't want. And so the utter worst world, the worst possible world, would be one where every sentient being is only experiencing those bad emotions, okay? So if we can accept that first premise, then that means there must be then these good experiences, right? And then we move towards those good experiences, and now we have our anchor for our worldview, right? So those are bad, and then these over here are good. Now we can organize ourselves in the world based on that, right? Okay, here are my problems with that. Okay, people are often seeking pleasure and happiness. But when they get that pleasure or that happiness, it doesn't satisfy them. So if we could come up with a drug that induced, you just take one a day, and then you would be totally pleasured and blissed out and only happy. Doesn't matter what happens, like your house could burn down and you'd be happy. Would that then be the goal, right? So not to straw man his argument, because he might say, well then, there are other things like challenge that we value as positive. But those aren't universally positive, right? Sometimes there's a challenge and you don't want to do the challenge. Sometimes you're forced to do the challenge, and then at the end of it, you're happy that you did it. You're happy you went through the challenge because you learned something. You grew as a person. you know, it's the pain and the suffering oftentimes that will break your limited little selfish worldview, right? When you experience that suffering and that pain, it like cracks the shell of your small-minded little existence, and it opens you up to the broader, you know, understanding of yourself and other people as a part of this whole world together, and kind of softens your selfishness. People are not going to do that voluntarily, so then who decides if we're just going for good? It's just very difficult to define what is good and what makes up this group of experiences that are good, because some of them are in both categories of this experiences you avoid but you are forced into, or you're advised to pursue, maybe by a mentor or something, and then it's just not easy. It's just not easy. And who decides when one person should undergo this challenge? I guess the individual, and then how? I don't know, it's tricky. Okay, so that was just one thing. But if we're only looking for these positive, maybe there's a drug that you could take that would also then make you feel like you've undergone a challenge. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like something to base a civilization on. Okay, so the other thing would be sometimes hurting someone else or ignoring their pain then improves my quality of life, right? So we're not talking about inherent meaning. We're just talking about the good, this basket of good emotions, right? So me ignoring the fact that these people in this other country are suffering increases my calm and contentment with the day. If I then, let's say that I give half of my money away to this thing, you know, and then I can't take my son out for dinner. Instead, we have to eat beans and rice at home because I don't have the money. But then, so ignoring their suffering improves what would be my basket of positive experiences. How do you account for that? And then also, you know, it's not about necessarily, now some people, they get pleasure from actually hurting other people. Mine is I'm just talking about ignoring the suffering of others, right? How does this work into our society? Does the society force me to make sacrifices for someone else's betterment? And if so, that's not really me taking on the challenge, lifting the heavy boulder, as Jordan Peterson would say it, like accepting a difficult responsibility to make the world better. It's the government forcing me to do it, right? But our goal is not responsibility. Our goal is this positive basket of experiences, right? Oftentimes there's more than one positive experience. Pleasure versus this feeling of meaning, right? And who's going to pick which one? And who's going to decide? I don't know, it gets complicated. Okay, another one is the assumption that as a conscious being, knowing that other humans experience pain and love and suffering and sadness like I do, that I am going to want to reduce that sadness and suffering and pain in the other people. I think that there is sort of an inherent knowledge that creating suffering is not good. But we know, it's been scientifically proven that animals, mammals especially, feel sadness and love and pain and joy and fear. We know that, right? So the moment that was like, we all kind of intuited that for as long as people have been around animals. But they've scientifically proven that they feel love and fear and things like that. So, in their brain, the same emotions, the same chemical reactions that we happen in our brains, happen in the brains of other mammals, dogs, cats, cows, sheep. So, the minute that came out, if everyone was just rational and trying to reduce the suffering of other sentient beings that suffered, right? Wouldn't that have been the end of the meat industry? Wouldn't be like, oh no, you don't understand. Cows feel fear and pain and sadness. Oh, they do? Oh, well then let me stop eating this hamburger and close down all the McDonald's stores. Oftentimes, this is another case of when reducing another being's suffering then reduces the basket of positive emotions in my life. So people aren't going to just be jumping at that to, oh, someone's suffering? Oh, let's stop doing it. That's not going, I don't see that a society being built around that. I don't see that as like a stable worldview. Okay, also another one would be, if you have this basket of positive emotions, the things that I like, there are lots of things that I like, that I enjoy, that I don't do as often as I want to because I don't have enough money to do it. So you would think that the more access that I had to these activities that create these positive experiences, going on boat holidays and whatever a case may be, skydiving, going clubbing, eating at expensive restaurants, taking my wife on, expensive holidays and chilling out at the beach. Now, while these do give me joy, they give me these positive emotions. That would mean that the richer that someone was, the more positive emotions he or she would have. Right, the more access they have to these activities that create this. So then you would see a graph when like people who had the least amount of money would be the least happy, and then the more money that you had, the happier and happier and happier and happier you would become as you were able to indulge in more of these positive basket of experiences. But that's not actually what we see. We see beyond like upper working class or lower middle class, the added money doesn't improve the real happiness that someone has in their life, right? Someone could be incredibly rich and miserable on antidepressants, because they have no meaning in their life. Nothing means anything. It's all they just have every kind of this sensory experience they want, and it doesn't mean anything. They never had to, work and sacrifice for something, and so it doesn't have the same meaning. So once again, that's another thing that needs to be accounted for, right? So we've got lots and lots and lots of things that constantly need to be accounted for. And just like saying these people are suffering, just give them all these positive experiences, is not necessarily going to... Now, if they don't have enough food or proper medical care or a decent place to live or clothes that protect them against the environment or a sense of security for their family, that they're not going to die of starvation the next day, or, the things that I mentioned would then provide a sense of security that you're not going to die from an ailment overnight, or that you at least can see treatment, and that you're going to have food and shelter and warmth and everything, right? So yes, that would lead to definitely negative states and unhappiness. So trying to provide for all human beings that they have those, I'm definitely behind that. Okay. And then another one is that, so if we're going to try to maximize human happiness, right? All right, so human beings don't need to have inherent value or sacredness, like that the individual is sacred and has value and is equal to other individuals despite their material inequality in intelligence or strength or whatever. None of that is necessary to try to maximize human happiness. And therefore, it's very easy to identify a group, those capitalists. They are causing the overall human happiness to go down. Let's just get rid of them, right? Or the Jew, right? Who needs the Jew, right? They're just creating suffering in this world. So let's get rid of all the Jews, and then that will increase the human happiness, right? The overall happiness. So, but you don't have the value of the individual there, right? Which is like so key. It's such a key idea that each individual, it's like metaphysical. It's a spiritual concept, really, and it's not necessary in this worldview. Also dealing with deviant behavior, someone who they say, well, my basket of good things contains this, and maybe yours doesn't, but mine does, and that's why I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Freezing rats for fun. That's what I do. And you might say, well, that's not good, or something much worse. Like frightening little children to death, or abusing or sexually molesting, or how do you come up with a consensus of what is okay to be in the basket of good experiences that are okay, and then by law you have to impose that on other people, and then what happens when a group of people disagrees with your basket of good experiences that are acceptable, and you're probably, I don't know. Okay, and people just aren't even rational. People aren't rational, and to expect to create a worldview and a society around a bunch of rational people is kind of a stretch. And then also talking about this rationality and this extending of charity, intellectual charity, moral charity when dealing with others and communicating with them, and how they see their world and what's good and bad in their world. Right? Sam doesn't even do that himself. I watched on his interview with Dave Rubin. He thinks that Trump supporters are pretty much dumb and immoral. That they're stupid and immoral is basically what he said. They want to tear everything down. They accept this buffoonish character, and they like his antics, and just because essentially implying that they're racist and that they're dumb. You can watch the clip, his interview with David Rubin, and it's kind of gross on how negative he is on Trump supporters. Not Trump supporters, as if 40% of the population is just dumb and cruel and racist, and extend a little charity and try to realize that Trump was speaking as an outside of the Democrat-Republican. He wasn't like an ideal candidate. He was the only choice for very many people who didn't see their interests. They didn't recognize any other candidate as behind their interests. They didn't see anyone else was going to try to do anything about immigration, which might be ruining their children's schools or their communities, or taking away their low-wage labor work, or they didn't see anyone else interested in that. They didn't see any other candidate that was a viable option for these different bad trade policies that were that they saw as ruining the manufacturing middle class workforce, unfair trade agreements. And they didn't see anyone speaking up for the fact that they were tired of political correctness, and they were tired of being told that they were bad for being men, or bad for being white, or so that was another demographic of people who voted, or just tired of having to police their language about stupid, silly things at work or at school. And they saw someone who wasn't going to police his language and was going to just say bombastic things, and maybe they thought, oh, well, that's the guy for me, because I don't want to have to be under this fearful, environment. So he didn't show any charity to Trump supporters in his interview with David Rubin, like virtually none. So he's not even living up to that, Okay, now Jordan Peterson. So here's my understanding of Jordan Peterson's worldview. So Jordan Peterson thinks that human beings have evolved and have been evolving. So obviously they've been evolving, right? So they organize themselves and they act out these moral principles and societal pillars of society, the way that people behave. They act it out before they can express it. And then as they see it acted out again and again, they find the words to express it. And they have been culturally evolving towards these towards better and better and better ideals. And that a large part of how they organize themselves as groups, whether they're small groups, large groups, societies, is through stories. And these stories have a grammar. They have a grammar to the stories that's repeated over and over and over again. And that the societies get better and better and better at telling these stories. And the stories improve. There's like this natural moral progression as people are uncovering these universal truths about how societies are organized to be successful. And that it's sort of like this Darwinian evolution of societies. And that our civilization has all these substructures that maybe we can't express so clearly, that are underpinning all this civilization and preventing everyone from clubbing each other to death and making everyone kind of get along and move forward. And that you can't just knock those out and come up with some sort of an idea of what civilization should be, this utopian idea, and try to replace it and think that everyone's going to fall in line and there's not going to be chaos and murder, as essentially the meaning has been, like the common story that we have as a society has been knocked out and tried to replace with something else. And so because it's hard to even, we're living out these principles of our society without even knowing that we're doing it. And that what a person does is a greater representation of what they believe and what their worldview really is than what they tell you. And that this evolution of society, that the most valuable idea, the single most valuable idea that's come out of that, is that each individual in society is essentially sacred. And that society has to be organized primarily down to the individual. And that the society based on that is going to be the most successful. And then as far as just like, the opposite of like trying to maximize the basket of good things, happiness, joy, pleasure, whatever that might be, responsibility, that Jordan Peterson is sort of like, he's saying, don't seek happiness. Find something meaningful. Create the highest aim that you could achieve. Your aim might move as you learn more and as you get closer to the aim, but set yourself the highest aim possible, the highest, most meaningful aim to improve yourself in the world, not happiness or pleasure. That, if that comes, then great. If not, then just keep moving, and your sense of meaning, and that will get you through essentially the fact that life is suffering. So life is suffering, and the way to counteract, there's a motive being to counteract that suffering, which is to try to improve yourself and try to aim for the highest goal that you can. And then along the way, as you're moving towards that, adjust your aim. But essentially the meaning that you get from trying to aim for the highest goal that you have is what will get you past the inevitable suffering that comes with life. That's unavoidable. Pick up the heaviest load that you actually can. tell the truth, and march towards your highest ideal. And to maximize the sense of meaning, keep one foot in order, things that you understand and are comfortable with, and also progress in things in chaos, things that you're uncomfortable with, and continue uncomfortable with unknown potential, and move towards your goal. To me, that just like describes my experience in the world, and it describes the society that I live in, and is incredibly inspirational, and like orients myself in my world much better than Sam's explanation of his worldview. Maybe it's not just me, obviously. But I remember Sam, when they were talking about meaning, or Sam was talking about the stories. This was on David Rubin's podcast, and he was saying, like, if you convince yourself, he said, okay, atheism is nothing. It's just the denial in someone's surety that there's a divine power. It's nothing, And I guess I agree. And it turns out people need more than nothing. And he said, if you convince yourself that you're Spider-Man, something so ridiculous, and then when you go to Starbucks and you're shy to talk to somebody, you can say, what would Spider-Man do? And it's a brain hack that will get you to be more, courageous or whatever. And so you could do something silly, ridiculous like that. That just doesn't have the same weight as everything you do matters. You can change the world. You can improve your life and the life of those people around you. Stand up and take your place in the world. Or pretend you're Spider-Man and do a mind hack. For nothing. I don't know. Jordan Peterson makes a lot more sense to me. Thank you for listening, and please leave questions and comments in the comments box below. Bye-bye.